Next, we are going to be hearing about from another perspective. I was hoping to really start this out with a lot of different perspectives from different disciplines and different expertise. And next, we have Michael Painter, who's Managing Director of Programs of the Tero Foundation. The Tero Foundation, their tagline is Thriving Peoples, Thriving Places, all about empowering, learning from, working with, and their leadership guided by Indigenous people around the world. And in this challenging time we're in, we definitely need ancient knowledge to guide us in this world we're in today. He is a physician, an attorney, and an advocate for a healthy future for all. So please join me in welcoming Michael Painter. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Good afternoon, relatives. I'm grateful to be here today, and I'm super honored to be on the lands of the Shoshone, Bannock, and Lehigh peoples. I'm gonna advance here, so that's us. I wanted to open our space with some voices of Indigenous colleagues, Indigenous people around the world, just to center us a little bit. And then after the video, it's a short one that we created last year, and then I'll introduce myself a little bit more formally. So sit back and enjoy.
Malolele, my name is Miakami. For generations, my ancestors have been guardians of our islands, protecting our land and oceans, taking only what they needed to survive. And we are not alone. We thank you for honoring the responsibility we share to each other and to every being on this planet. So we ask you to release yourself from all distractions, take a deep breath, and listen. If we pay attention, the signs are everywhere. Plant and soil, rock and river, every being on this earth shares a fundamental reciprocal connection with all others. This guiding principle of Indigenous science is at the heart of all our interactions and is especially evident in Earth's most biodiverse places. These thriving ecosystems are energy-rich wellsprings of life, and they are home to more than 370 million Indigenous people. For generations, we have shaped and been shaped by these lands and waters, gathering knowledge from their cycles and rhythms, developing ways of being that sustain our communities and our lands. But greed and violence, rooted in ideologies of colonialism and consumption, have put these vital ecosystems at risk. But we have withstood such forces and more. Our resilience and knowledge represent a fundamental way forward to protect these thriving places and all our futures. We are the Indigenous guardians. We are the caring, unyielding protectors of an area more than twice the size of South America, spread across 87 countries. We safeguard over a quarter of the Earth's land surface and the life force on that land, which includes, for instance, more than 80% of forest biodiversity. We continue to innovate to further strengthen our ways. And we must be full partners to increase protection of global land and sea to 30% or more. We all have an opportunity for a shared future, born from our Indigenous ways of living and knowing. A future in which we continue to fight, continue to tell our stories for future generations. A future based on the interconnectedness between all beings. A future built on Indigenous guardianship.
Hi again. I'm Mike, Michael Painter, and like all of you out there, I'm lots of things. You may or may not notice some of the things about me. For instance, I'm an Indigenous man, and that may not be the very first thing you see when you see me. But I assure you, I'm deliberately and categorically not invisible. I'm here, we're here, we Indigenous people have been here for thousands of years. We survive, that's what we do, and we're not going anywhere. I'm originally from Indian Territory in the United States. My mom is Cherokee, she still lives in Oklahoma in the US. My father was white, he died about 20 years ago. I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation in Indian Territory. My grandfather was sent to the Chautauqua Indian boarding school in Indian Territory when he was a boy. If you don't know, you're not aware, Chautauqua was the second of the network of indigenous boarding schools across the US. My grandfather ran away and warned the family about the conditions at the school. His father, my great-grandfather, when he was a baby, was removed with his parents by the US federal government from their ancestral lands in what is now known as North Carolina and taken to Indian Territory. I'm so proud of my ancestors, what they endured, how they survived in the face of removals, genocide, land grabs, cultural decimation, how they taught us really to thrive and survive in the face of literally everything you could throw at us. And we Indigenous people, myself included, we've worked like hell to get back, sometimes force our way back into spaces, all spaces, especially elite spaces, even spaces like this beautiful forum. We belong here because we belong everywhere. These are our spaces, these are our lands. So I'm looking out at you today with the confidence of my ancestors. And even if you could push us away, one of us away, say me, Mike, and if you knew me, you'd know you might have a tricky time doing that. But if you could, I know there were many, many more of us coming right behind me. We Indigenous people understand our power, especially at this moment on Earth, and we're stepping into it all around the world. That's happening right now, and that's a big part of my message to you today. I'm here, as Amy said in my introduction, representing Tero. We're a relatively new organization. We're about 5 years old. We're a global nonprofit based in Coast Salish Territory in Seattle, Washington, in the US. At Tero, we work with Indigenous partners to enable what we call Indigenous guardianship everywhere possible on Earth. And we believe it's important, it's sacred spiritual work, it's unbelievably urgent, and it's based on time immemorial knowledge, experience, wisdom, and science of Indigenous peoples. We work alongside and in close solidarity with Indigenous partners and colleagues all around the world to help them as they care for and live in deep reciprocity with their lands. We call that work, what they do, Indigenous guardianship, as Mia Kami was describing in the video. And we understand that this work is probably the most urgent thing imaginable on the planet right now. So we humans are in trouble. You know it, right? I mean, I assume you've all read the reports, but can you feel it? It can be sort of deceptive, especially on kind of a beautiful day here in this amazing Sun Valley place. It's gorgeous. But the signs, like we said, are everywhere. I don't know if any of you were here almost a year ago, exactly a year ago, not here, but in the Pacific Northwest, where we experienced humanity's worst ever heat anomaly. Sustained temperatures in what is otherwise a temperate place, hitting 116, 118, 120 degrees over days at a time. Over 800 people died across the Pacific Northwest due to that anomaly, and not to mention the billions of beings that perished. It was not supposed to happen. Or last December, I was visiting my daughter. She lives right outside Boulder, Colorado, in a town called Louisville. And one minute, we were enjoying a sunny, warm, windy, kind of post-holiday Thursday, and literally the next minute, that beautiful exurban place turned into a chaotic, apocalyptic, intense wildfire scene that was not supposed to happen. It was not supposed to happen there. People were literally running for their lives from this sudden wildfire driven by hurricane-force winds and severe drought. That was not supposed to happen, but it did. There's no place to hide. Nowhere is exempt or safe, and that's just a sampling. What's coming is exponentially worse. The climate is degrading, and the ecosystems on which we all co-evolved is collapsing around us. As you probably read, the IPBES report from a couple of years ago tells us that over a million species are in extreme danger of extinction simply because of the way we are living, because of us. And ultimately, the Earth gets a say. We humans can only live so long ignoring our deep connection to all the systems of which we are a part, out of step, abusing, and in arrogance, like a cancer on the planet, rather than a part of the whole healthy system. And those systems, if we don't respect them, they will course correct, and that's what's happening right now. The planet will take care of the threat, and that threat is us, ignorant humans. However, working with our indigenous partners around the world, we are about replenishing the planet, not imagining some sort of alternate reality. We're about working with people with thousands of years of carefully accumulated experience and wisdom and observation that they use to guide living with rather than using up. So why is this work so powerful and critical? There's some basic numbers. Indigenous people are a small proportion of the human population, only 5%, but they currently manage over a third of the land surface. That's twice the size of South America. And in that's almost a fifth of the forest carbon, and it's 80% of the remaining biodiversity on the planet. So just let that soak in and understand the leveraged power that indigenous people now hold. In fact, on the bleak climate change and biodiversity collapse fronts, really the only bright spot has been in place for thousands of years, carefully, quietly taking care of home. So what do we do at Tero? First thing we do is we understand that we can't be like everybody else. If we're like everybody else, we will fail. We have to center and attach to this as much as we can to the sacredness of what we do. And it's kind of weird to be a company in Seattle, Washington, doing that, but that's what we do, and we call it Indigenous Ways and Means. It's our way of practicing reciprocity, both as we work as a community inside our offices, and then as we start to show up in places and work with our partners around the world. And we have some big aspirations. First, it's based on place-anchored partnerships and then networks of guardians around the world, specifically and just practically speaking in large vital ecosystems. And I'll show you a map in a minute of what those are, but it's Amazonia, Pacifica, and the Boreal Forest in North America. And then we want to amplify, expand the understanding about how critically important this is at this time. And so we're doing that with original indigenous created content, proliferating a set of amazing stories by indigenous creators. We also have a global policy team. I'm part of that. We go to the global policy United Nations conventions on biodiversity, on climate change, on financing, anywhere we can. We show up and we make sure our indigenous partners are there and prepared and have what they need to be effective and make their voices heard. We're also helping to work and find funding sources that are permanent in the hands of and controlled by indigenous people so they don't have to rely on the forces that have degraded them for so long. And all of that is to enable guardianship in perpetuity. We have kind of bodies of work, we say. I mean, this is basically what we do. We help people secure guardianship. We strengthen their organizations and networks as they tell us they need. If they tell us they need help with strengthening rights and self-governance, we do that. We help them if they want to elevate their voices. And this access to direct financing is critically important, and they have to control it. That's that map I mentioned of the 3 large geographies. So that's us. That's what we do. It's kind of simple. But we think it's time that we all helped those indigenous guardians survive, thrive, and heal our relationship with our planet. And we hope that you grasp the power here and the urgency and consider, in whatever way you can, helping guardians and learning from them. I wanted to end with a poem by Joy Harjo. She's the United States Poet Laureate. She's Muskogee. She's also from Oklahoma, like I am. And she says in that book, "These times were predicted. a time in which the birds would be confused about which direction to fly to migrate, a time in which the sun would darken with pollution, a time in which there would be confusion and famine. In these kinds of times, we are in great danger of forgetting our original teachings, the nature of the kind of world we share, and what it requires of us. In this world of forgetfulness, they told me, you will forget how to nourish the connection between humans, plants, animals, and the elements, a connection needed to make food for your mind, your heart, body, and spirit. You were born of a generation that promised to help remember. Each generation makes a person. You came in together to make change. I really hope you do. Thanks so much for having me.